Hello class, we're coming back to the problem that we had started in the last section. I just want to start from scratch. So let's look at this problem again. It says 500 is borrowed for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, $540 is to be paid to the lender. What is the interest rate? So we will use our formula, our future value formula. We have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. Now we substitute. We're given a future value, which is $540, and we set that equal to our principal amount, which is the initial amount we borrowed, which was $500, and we will multiply that by 1 plus. Now our rate we don't know, but the time is in months. It's 6 months out of a 12-month year. So now we have $540 is equal to 500 times 1 plus, we have our R. 6 over 12 is the same as saying 1/2. Okay, now, again, our objective is to get the rate or R by itself. So our next step, we would divide each side by 500. And this will give us, on the right-hand side, we will have 1 plus 1/2 times R. And on the left-hand side, we will have 540 divided by 500. Now, our next step, remember we're trying to get R by itself, so we will subtract 1 on both sides. So now we will have 540 over 500, and we would change this 1 to be a fraction, having a denominator of 500. So that 1 that we subtracted will become 500 over 500, which we know is 1. And that would equal to 1/2 times R. Now, 540 minus 500 is 40, divided by 500. And that equals to 1/2 R. Now we need to get the 1/2 off of the R. So we multiply each side by the reciprocal of 1/2. So we'll multiply each side by 2 over 1. So now we will have 2 times 40, which is 80, over 1 times 500, which is 500. And that equals to the 1/2 and 2 over 1 will simplify out and leave us R. Now what we need to do, we need to take our calculator and divide 500 into 80 to find out what our interest rate is. Now we can divide both of these by 20, and we would get 4 over 25 if we divide both of these by 20. Now you can show that on your notes. Just put division sign 20 over 20. So that would be 4 over 25 is equal to R. And when we put it in the calculator to give us 16% is equal to our rate of interest. So now we want to go to the next example. It says 7,000 is invested at 2.5% simple interest for 3 years. Find the loan's future value. So we would take A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So we will have A is equal to our principal is $7,000 times 1 plus our rate is 2.5%, which would be 0.025, and it would be multiplied by T, which is 3 years. So now we will have 7,000 times. Now we have to multiply these two parentheses. So this will give us 1 plus 0.025 times 3 is 0.075. And we know 1 plus 0.075 would give us 1.075. Now we will multiply these values, and our future value would be $7,525, and that will be our final answer. Now we go to our next example. It says find each loan's simple interest rate. So now we have P is 3,000, A is 3,180, and T is equal to 1 year. Now we want the simple interest rate. But if you notice here, we have our A. So we need to use the future value formula, which is A is equal to P times 1 plus RT, R times T. So our A here is 3,180 is equal to our P is 3,000. And we will have 1 plus, now we don't know what our rate is, but we do know our time is 1. So we had 3,180 is equal to 3,000 times, this would be 1 plus R. Now our next step, we would divide each side by 3,000. And now we can simplify 3,180 and 3,000. We could divide both of these by 20, and that will give us 159 over 150. And that equals, these 3,000 simplify out, and we'll be left with 1 plus R. Now again, we want to get R by itself, so we would need to subtract 1 on both sides. Now we're going to have to go up here because of the lack of space. So we have 159 over 150 minus. Now we're going to make this 1 into a fraction. We will make it 150 over 150. So we can easily subtract it with the same denominator, and it equals R. 159 minus 150 is 9, all over 150. It equals R. Now we have 9 divided by 150. That would give us 6%. And that is our final answer. Now, we scroll down to the next problem. We have P is equal to 10,000, A is equal to 14,060, and T is equal to 2 years. So we will still use the same formula. We have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So we add, well, let me see, we do have the value for A. A is equal to 14,060. Our P is 10,000. We have 1 plus, we don't know what our R is, but our T is 2. So now we have 14,060 is equal to 10,000 times, we go inside this parenthesis, it'll be 1 plus 2R, because R times 2 is 2R. Now, we would divide each side by 10,000. Now, when we simplify 14,060 by 10,000, that would give us 703 over 500. Because we could divide both of these by 20. These 10,000s will simplify out and leave 1 plus 2R. Now, we will subtract 1 on both sides, because remember, we're still trying to get R by itself. So this will give us 703 over 500 minus this 1, we will make 500 over 500, and then that will equal to 2R. Now we're going to go up here because of lack of space. 703 minus 500 is 203 over 500, and that equals 2R. Now, our next step, we need to get rid of this 2R for the R, so we can divide each side by 2. So we will have R here, these 2's will simplify out, and as we learned before, we will keep our numerator the same, and we will multiply our denominators. 500 times 2 is 1,000. Now remember, I showed you all this in previous lessons, that whenever you have a fraction divided by a singular number, the numerator stays the same, and you multiply these two denominators. So now we need to put this in our calculator. We need to take 203 divided by 1,000. That would give us approximately 20.3%. Rewrite that. So we will have 20.3%. 0.3%. That would be our rate of return, or the rate, I should say. Okay, now we come to the next problem. We have P is equal to 1700, A is 1820, and T is 6 months. So we do the same process. We have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So we have A, which is 1820, is equal to P, which is 1700. 1 plus R, we don't know the rate, and RT is 6 months out of a year or 12 months. So we had 1,820 is equal to 1,700 times 1 plus, we know 6 over 12 is 1/2. So we could say that is 1/2 R. Now our next step, we will divide each side by 1,700. Now we could divide both of these here by 20. And that would give us 91 over 85. And that would equal to 1 plus 1/2 R. Now, what we need to do is subtract 1 on both sides. And this will give us 91 over 85 minus, we would change that 1 to be 85 over 85. And that would equal to 1/2 R, because the ones will simplify out. So 91 minus 85, need a little bit more space, that will give us 6 over 85, which is equal to 1/2 R. Now we need to multiply each side by the reciprocal of 1/2, which we know is 2 over 1. So 2 times 6 is 12, 1 times 85 is 85, equals, these two simplify out and leave you R. Now you put this in your calculator, it will give you approximately 14.1% will be your rate. And that is your final answer. Now we scroll down to the next example. It says determine the present value you must invest to have future value A. Please round answers up to the nearest cent. So we have A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. So our A is 8,500 is equal to, we don't know what our P is, and we have 1 plus R is 7%, which is 0.07, and T is 3. So we have 8,500 is equal to P times 0.07 times 3 would give you 0.21 plus 1, which would be 1.21. Now, our next step after this, we would divide each side by 1.21 to get P by itself. 8,500 divided by 1.21 will give us $7,024.79. And that will be the approximate value of P, which is your initial principal. Now we come to the next problem. Using the same formula, A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. A is equal to 16,000 equals, we don't know what P is, 1 plus our R will be 0.115 times 5 for T. So we will add 16,000 is equal to P times 1 plus, it'll be 0.575. Now when we add these together, we have 16,000 equals P times 1.575. Now we would divide each side by 1.575. And our final answer would be $10,158.73. And that is the approximation of what your principal would be. Okay, now we come to the next problem. Same formula. A is equal to P times 1 plus RT. Now A is equal to our P we don't know,